I pressed it.
You pressed it. Push the button, Frank.
I keep pressing it. So welcome everybody. This is the Trampled Underfoot podcast show with your hosts Mark Lindsay out in the western edges of what we call America, the US, or
in an
more
undisclosed
sophisticated.
location.
What's that?
In an undisclosed location.
Yeah, in an undisclosed bunker somewhere under a plateau. What do you call it? A mesa.
Yes.
In some undisclosed mesa cavernous location,
Mm-hmm.
and me here in South Florida, that is in the subtropical wonders that is the phallus of the United States.
Okay. Okay, that's one way of putting it. Let me ask you, we had some weird, wild weather down south. Did you have to turn off the AC and put a blanket on your bed?
Yeah, since about November, the AC is running on fan only,
Mm-hmm.
and last week we had a 5 day to 7 day
Mm-hmm.
stint of an incredibly uncomfortable cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I posted that, man, it's 58 degrees and it's horrible or whatever. I'm not doing, and
I
people were
remember that.
laughing from all
Mm-hmm.
over other parts of the country and the world. And
Yeah.
a cousin of mine that lives in Spain,
Mm-hmm.
she left a comment, says, well, yeah, because um, your houses down there aren't built for insulating such things.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that are, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them not, especially when you're talking about 1948 buildings.
Yeah.
This one is 83, but still. So we get all that cold
Mm-hmm.
penetrating through
Yeah.
and lingering inside. I don't know if it's different for you, but long story short, just to wrap this up, is I don't have that. And it was weirdly musky cold with humidity,
Mm-hmm.
and it just went through my bones. And it went down to like 40 something,
Mm-hmm.
and it was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember you making that post, and I said, "Oh, don't like 58. Can I interest you in 22 and freezing fog?" That's what we've had for the last week. It stopped raining. It's been nice and clear, but the water around us has been warmer than the air, so we've got fog that freezes, and
Yeah.
it's wild. But
It was weird because the humidity factor I mean,
Mhm.
it's not as cold as other places, Canada,
Mhm.
Minnesota, just it's not, or out where you live, or
Mhm.
the New England, but we're not used to that. We're actually used to being in flip flops all year round,
Mhm.
and our winters are usually
Oh,
mild.
and it's legit because I mean I was watching footage of Pensacola, and there is 6 to 8 inches of snow on the beach.
Yeah.
And I mean, the water's coming up and it's snow. That wasn't sand, that was snow. And there's like 5 snowplows in the whole state, and they were busy trying to keep I-10 open.
Now, let me, I gotta, let me leapfrog on that for half a second.
Mhm.
I'm gonna leapfrog on that and see what you say,
Mhm.
to try to. So obviously, I don't see snow
Mhm.
every day, let alone every year, let alone for decades
Uh-huh.
or ever, unless I travel north,
Yeah, right.
which I have. But Americans tend, I'm going to tie this in.
Okay.
Americans tend to have this leaning towards and enjoyment towards, me too, conspiracy. Like,
Mhm.
we like the Twilight Zone, we like, stuff like that, and then there's
Yeah.
the lizard people and hop leapfrogging from that, all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. I saw a series of video, and now with AI, I
Mhm.
don't know what to think. I saw a few videos where people were picking up snow and saying, "You know what? This is not how snow actually reacts." And there's like the music, and but
Mhm.
not one video, a lot of them. And then people are taking it and saying, "Look, it's almost like styrofoam," and they were using all these things. And since I'm not a snow guy,
Mhm.
I'm intently watching. Well, what? I'm caught.
Mhm.
And they even one guy even takes it into a microscope,
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Look, folks, this is not snow," and like all sorts of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's contradicting them. And so I'm thinking to myself, is this some government experiment to layer the southern part of the East Coast with some like all the stuff that they say? And
Mm-hmm.
it's fast. I know it's not true, but
Mm-hmm.
the point is that it was fascinating enough that it kept me watching. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is very typical and tempting. And people like so. So, did you see any of those type of weird?
I didn't see any of those. The only one that I saw was on related to the snow thing. So it's like, all right, I got a snowball and he puts it into a pan and he hits it with a torch
I
and it's
saw that
not
one.
melting. And it's like, okay, Professor Plum, you obviously don't know anything about snow. Snow is made up of frozen flakes. And if you hit it with a torch, you're right, it is going to melt. But what's going to happen?
Distribution.
That capillary action, it's going to get absorbed. There's a lot of air in a snowball. You put it in a pan, turn on the heat, it will eventually melt once it reaches that saturation point,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I figured that as much that it's gonna melt when it melts,
Mm-hmm.
and that it has open cells.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of air pockets in there, and that water is going to go fill it up. And no, it's not going to leak out the bottom because of capillary action, you know?
Yeah.
So it just, but keep the torch on it, keep it going, or just, you know, turn up the heat on the stove or whatever, but keep the torch on it.
Well,
Eventually, that snowball will get saturated with water and it can't hold any more water and it'll start to run out.
well, it's just so those videos because I saw a few of them,
Hmm.
it wouldn't melt,
Yeah.
but it was only a short video. It's
Yeah.
almost like those alien UFO videos.
Hmm.
They always show the video, and then it ends. You don't know what happened prior or after,
Yeah.
and they don't tell you, not always, but most of the time they don't tell you location, this,
Hmm.
that. None of the data or information that
Well,
would support some accuracy, that never happens.
well, here's what I could do. I could take a pan, fill it with water, halfway full, and I can put it on the stove and I can say this is not real water that just came out of my faucet and turn on the burner. Look, it's not boiling.
Yeah.
Now, I'd have a million people saying, you got to give it some time. It's not instant. It has to heat up and then it'll start boiling. Well, it's the same thing with melting ice. You take an ice cube out of your freezer and put it in a pan and hit it with a blowtorch. It's not going to instantly melt. It takes it a second,
Yeah.
you know, and you can't put that into a 1 minute clip unless you time lapse it. But of course, they won't do that
Yeah.
because
It's
that doesn't
always
fit the narrative.
exactly. It's
It,
always that kind of stuff.
I call that conspiracy for the clicks. But now, if you want to get away from stuff people are putting on YouTube and what have you, which I think is conspiracy for the clicks, just personally, that's not to say that conspiracies don't exist because several have been proven to be true. But a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is just simply science fiction, you know?
Well, that leads me to just get it out of the way is the Kennedy files will finally be completely released.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest question marks that people have gone on for decades. Movies have been
Mm-hmm.
made, books and such.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the thing about it is that it's one of the biggest conspiracies. The potential. So what I've heard. So
Mm-hmm.
this is like anecdotal.
Sure.
Is that much of the files have already been released anyhow?
Yeah.
What's left over is left over.
Mm-hmm.
But that event had a lot of people pointing fingers. Some of the fingers pointed was internally
Uh-huh.
through the government proper.
Sure.
Other fingers pointed towards, um,
Russia.
the lone gunman type thing. Others pointed towards the Italian mafia,
Mm-hmm.
which had a dislike for the Kennedys because they helped the Kennedys
Mm-hmm.
um, politically, and then the Kennedys went after them, so they weren't happy. And another one points to, in that same era, to the Cubans,
Yeah.
um, because the Cubans were backstabbed by Kennedy, and there was at that time already early
Yeah.
on a strong presence of Cubans here,
Hmm.
um, that were involved in the military, involved with the CIA,
Hmm.
um, and had money that they transferred over. Um, so that's another one. And in fact,
Well,
later in the Nixon administration, it was Cubans that broke into some Cubans that broke into Watergate. So Cubans have been present
yeah.
all sorts of American happenings,
Yeah.
um, based on many factors. So
Well,
you
another
have,
one that I heard about was that the Cubans were working for Russia.
oh well,
That Russia had put the Cubans up to it in various.
there were two sides to the Cuban thing. One
Mhm.
side is Cubans exiled here,
Hmm.
and then the other one was Cubans from Cuba proper.
Right.
And those two differ in their political obvious. One of
Sure.
them is from the communistic world of Fidel Castro. The other ones are the ones that
Hmm.
were trying to topple him. So there was those two branches. My dad
Yeah.
was part of the Cuban exile community
Hmm.
and was in the army, um, and was involved in certain
Yeah.
operations, which can be evidenced. I've posted them before, with papers released.
Well, we did an entire podcast about it. I want to say it was either episode 2 or episode 3, and we titled it Eloy's Revolutionary Roots.
I remember that one.
Yeah,
Um,
and you can download that and check it out on the trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
yes. Um, the I never I can't recall whether or not my dad and I had conversations about the whole Kennedy thing in terms of who did it and this and that.
Yeah,
But he did mention it because it was part of his timeline
sure.
of things, and Cubans weren't happy, broadly speaking. And he did
Yeah.
say that. My dad said we weren't happy. We felt betrayed. So Kennedy had a lot of potential enemies,
Yeah, a lot.
and I guess to wrap this up, the release of this finally
Hmm.
might shed those missing links. Maybe, maybe not. But I will say that anything confirming actual U.S. government involvement in said activities like that,
Hmm.
in my opinion, would be extremely, even 50, 60 years out, extremely problematic,
Hmm.
even today. And the reason for that is that it breaks open certain paradigms clear in people's faces where they no longer can hopscotch around it, and then they have to accept the reality that it would be, if it's true, that yes, indeed, officials could in fact do something such as that, and that would be a paradigm shift, and this and
Hmm.
the other. In any
Well,
of
yeah, but you know how these things go because I think you're right. Americans, and not just Americans, but Americans in particular, are obsessed with conspiracy. I mean, and we've talked about this before, but it's almost like a hobby. I don't know that it's a national pastime, but it ain't that far away. There's a certain percentage of the population, and I don't know if it's through cynicism, a natural form of distrust, or what it is actually. But if you make a joke about anything to do with government specifically,
Mhm.
somebody is going to come in that post and say, well, sure, that's what they want you to think.
Yeah.
Or let's say they do, there is some earth shattering news and there is a smoking gun. The people who have an interest in keeping the conspiracy alive are just going to say, well, you're a part of it.
And that's what happened with the flat Earth thing.
Yeah, that's what happened with the Antarctica thing and the flat Earth.
Did you
And
ever go and just revisit it just to see what it was?
Yeah, I did kind of look at it for a few minutes, but then I had to get up and go. We had a bunch of things going on, but so I haven't sat down and watched the entire thing from bumper to bumper. But I do need to do that. I've got it marked in. I've got it saved in my watch later on YouTube.
Yeah.
But some people have an interest in keeping the argument alive.
Hmm.
I don't know whether it's a financial interest for the lulls or just to be quote unquote edgy, you know. I think a
People
lot of that,
probably, people,
you know,
a lot of people probably honestly believe it because what happens is that there's so much, so we don't know what we don't know. And if we're presented with stuff, depending on how it's presented, it's compelling, like we've been saying. And if you don't take the opposite position of what you have,
mm-hmm,
in other words, let's say, man, this is so compelling, I'm freaking like believing it.
mm-hmm,
But if you don't then put your shoes on the other foot or whatever, then what happens is you're missing the other perspective, and people get involved in this sort of snowball effect
mm-hmm.
where they just it's called confirmation bias.
Yeah, yeah.
We all do that.
Oh, sure. We all have a confirmation bias,
Yeah,
but
we all do that because we're preparing paradigms on a constant basis in our
mm-hmm,
minds about how the world operates. In order for us to navigate the world, we have definitions of how and what
but
everything is. Yeah.
but we have to be honest with ourselves first. In that, if you come along and you start telling me something about this volcano and that earthquake and this area and the geography and the geology of a certain area, and the government is doing this and the government's doing that and the government's doing the other, and I don't have the knowledge, I don't know geology, I don't know about volcanoes, I don't know how earthquakes work, I don't know, are we got two tectonic plates, is it a subduction zone, what's going on there? I have to be honest with myself and say, I don't know anything about this subject. So what he's saying may be right. Then again, it may be wrong. Maybe he's misinformed. Maybe he has an interest. Or maybe he's, 100% correct and on the up and up.
Or partly
But
correct.
but you have to be honest with yourself and admit that you don't know anything about the subject. So can you really take a stand one way or the other?
So we've talked about this before, but there was a study done called the Dunning and Kruger effect,
Yes.
and it's become very famous or popular. The information itself of what it found is interesting, but the way people are using it is also interesting. So the Dunning Kruger effect explains that when a person engages in a exploration of a topic or discipline, be it whether they want to be a medical doctor or an
Mhm.
author or a card collector or whatever,
Mhm.
historian, whatever, when they begin their journey in said discipline, their confidence in
Yes.
their knowledge is extremely high at
Mhm.
the offset.
Right.
And as they travel forward in time and continue to explore that topic, coin collecting,
Mhm.
they find more coins they weren't expert about before,
Mhm.
and the history of the coins that they didn't know before,
Mhm.
or where they were printed and the people involved in the printing houses and so on and so forth. And as they travel in time, there's a chart where their knowledge increases and their confidence level drops.
Confidence or competence?
Confidence.
Confidence. Okay.
Okay, so their knowledge increases because they're gathering more information,
Mhm.
but where they started with high
Yeah.
confidence,
Mhm.
in other words, I know this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what's what because I know
Yeah.
that starts to drop, even though they know more,
Right.
because the more one knows, the more they know that there's extra stuff out there
Exactly.
that they're not aware of,
I was
lowering
just getting ready to say that. Yeah.
lowering their confidence level. So what they found was that when they had kids take or students take a test, but before they took the test, they asked them what their confidence level was
Hmm.
on them acing the test or whatever. The people that were the most confident
Hmm.
scored the lowest, and the people that were less confident scored the most.
Hmm.
This doesn't apply for every single individual, but in bulk, what they noticed was that bravado does not equal experience, knowledge, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so that's the Dunning Kruger effect. And so, but on in
Well,
popular internet culture,
hmm.
people have taken the Dunning and Kruger effect and applied it in the following way. Somebody says something in a comment on YouTube,
Hmm.
then a person comes along and says, "Oh, dude, you are suffering from a Dunning and Kruger effect, ha ha ha," or whatever.
Hmm.
They're applying this by saying to the person, "You're ignorant. You don't know what you're talking about. You have the Dunning Kruger effect." But
Well,
here's the well, no, I gotta. Here's the problem with them doing that. The person laughing at the other person because the other person is ignorant about something
hmm.
is applying the Dunning Kruger effect incorrectly, because the Dunning and Kruger effect not only applies to the person that they're commenting
Hmm.
it to, but to themselves as well. It's not something
Well,
that some people have and other people don't. It's a human tendency.
right. Well, the definition of it, the Dunning-Kruger effect, is a cognitive bias in which people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities.
Yes.
So when you're getting a little bit of exposure to something, you think you know more than you actually know. And that's where the confidence that you're talking about starts to go down as they learn more,
Mhm.
because as they learn more, they become more and more aware of how little they actually know right now and
Yes.
how much more there is out there to learn.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I get that, and I see where you're going with that with the comments too. Well, man, that's the Dunning Kruger effect. Really? Is it? No, it
Yeah.
could be, but then again, it could also be you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, all those but even if
Mhm.
the person, like, let's say I see a comment on YouTube over this type of thing, because it's usually surrounding IQ and this and that with these
Sure.
people with all these ideas. Um, and let's say I am one of these, and I come up and say, "Dude, you're suffering from the Dunning and Kruger effect."
Mhm.
Well, let's say I've identified the truth of the matter with him.
Mhm.
Um, I have to apply the fact that I too am capable of, um, not capable, absolutely. It's a human thing.
Mhm.
I have used it before in order to shed light,
Mhm.
to have the person see if they'll go and investigate and correct.
Right.
And so what I've done is I'll say, "Dude, you might be participating in some sort of Dunning and Kruger." And mind you, but I always leave an out,
Mhm.
because I'm not going to exclude myself.
Mhm.
It has to be done right. So I tell them, and by the way, we all have the ability and
Right.
fall within that category, just so you know. Like, I will qualify it,
Mhm.
but I'll
But
use it.
but the person making that claim, well, you're just participating in a Dunning Kruger effect. Well, so are you, because
Right.
you have overstated your abilities to make that kind of a diagnosis.
Right. If the other person comes back and says, "Hey, buddy,
Mhm.
you too are capable of Dunning and Kruger, so don't give me none of that." And
Mhm.
if you reply and say, "No, it's only you," then you're in the wrong. But if
Yeah.
you reply and say, "Oh, well, that's true. I'm just saying that you're suffering Dunning and Kruger from this particular topic or this or that,"
Mhm.
then you're in the clear. the chess game of exchange of ideas and knowledge are are one move at a time
Hmm.
on a chessboard, and the rules, nobody has to follow the rules. That's one thing. I can do whatever the hell I want, but if I'm going to engage in a back and forth, I have to participate, not only being honest with you in order to get across to you what I'm trying to say, but I have to be honest with me in
Exactly.
making the moves and not overtaking, not trying to um, sideswipe a
Hmm.
chess move
Hmm.
because it's going to be a false win, let's say. So,
Right.
anyways,
So there are rules.
but you have to keep them on your own because it's not a universe. It's universal in the sense that
Well, if a guy takes his horse and just suddenly moves four squares straight over, you've broken the rules. That horse can't move that way. So there are rules of engagement when it comes to this kind of a
if
thing.
if the goal is
Uh,
honesty,
Otherwise, exactly. Otherwise, it's not an honest win. You couldn't win because that piece can't make that move. But by the same token, in a I won't say an argument, but in an exchange of ideas like we're talking about, to suddenly, step back from a conclusion and do the old schoolyard my dog's bigger than your dog thing. Well, what does that got to do with anything? You have lost. It's not you have just lost the debate because you've run out of substance and had to resort to getting personal. So there's no intellectual honesty going on here. It's just that you can't handle what ideas are coming at you.
look.
Because you can't stand being contradicted. My mind is made up. Don't confuse me with the facts.
So there's also another thing happening
Hmm.
where if my experience in engaging people online, YouTube, whatever,
Hmm.
is that everybody sort of doesn't operate in the best
Oh
light,
God, no. God,
um,
no.
then I become accustomed to expecting that behavior broadly,
Hmm.
and then even I'm affected because then my responses will accommodate towards that, and it creates a snowball effect of poor communication.
And it's
And I'll
just going
give
to
you,
devolve into name calling, which is why I don't engage.
or simply missing
Hmm.
everything that's valuable in a conversation to move it forward and this and that. I'll give you one final example.
Hmm.
I just recently, in a group, asked a question. It's the Y-DNA group.
Hmm.
This might get in the weeds, but I'll keep it like this. I asked a question. I have these set of ancient fathers
Hmm.
in one stretch with an estimated age of 100 years between them.
Hmm.
And so I asked the question in the group to the professionals that do that.
Hmm.
Does this suggest or point to an actual father to son generational event? In other words, am I
Hmm.
looking at, as opposed to thousands of years apart from each other,
Hmm.
am I looking at an actual father to son thing in this area in England?
Hmm.
Because I have people
Yeah.
in my paternal line that were in England
Hmm.
anciently.
Yeah.
People moved around.
Sure.
At least that's what the information is showing.
Hmm.
Okay, so they came back with all sorts of things that didn't address the question that I had.
Yeah.
I went back and the same thing. I went back and finally it got resolved more or less. It did. And why am I bringing this up? Because these people are probably accustomed to. And I said, um, I hope that my question isn't convoluted or I'm shy of explaining exactly what I want. And we went on like that. Because I was trying to narrow the path so they can answer me.
Hmm.
They were giving me all other answers.
Yeah.
This happens probably because they are already accustomed to completely misinterpreted questions and answers
Hmm.
similar. And so why would I be any different? They don't know me from Adam.
Yeah.
So they may read what is written,
Hmm.
but they may skip the thing and just see the keywords that they
Yeah.
answer the keywords. They don't answer the actual thing that I'm saying. But
Right.
when I write,
Hmm.
I'm literally, so like me talking to you now, I may fudge here or there. But when I sit and write, I may make mistakes, but what I'm actually writing, I actually thought about.
Hmm.
And I place the words together in order to reach an objective. I'm
Hmm.
literally telling the person exact, unless we're playing around and like
Yeah.
fooling around and joking, but if it's something serious, I'm literally laying it out in an using the English language to get my idea across, literally
Hmm.
as best I could. But they may be saying, "Oh, this is just another guy," and so they answer whatever.
Yeah. They don't know you from Adam, so yeah.
Eventually, we got the answer. Anyways, the answer was that there was a string of people,
Hmm.
and I asked in between them if there's 100 years, and the 100 years, it's complicated, but the 100 years, there's a marker change. So it points to these people being all together in a succession of 100 years after the other,
Yeah.
meaning maybe they're father to son. Well, they said, well, 100 years is the mean,
Okay.
but the variable is 1,000 years.
Okay.
It could be the mean.
Hmm.
We don't know. It
Yeah.
could be on this side of 1,000 or on this side of 1,000.
Right.
In other words, in other words, what I'm looking at is so broad and speculative.
Hmm.
We don't know how many in between people because they haven't found the
Right.
bones.
Right.
And so it cleared it up. I was a little disappointed because I wanted it to be more concise.
Hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, going
Yeah.
back in time, we don't know because we don't have all the bones. We only have gaps in between that are pushing us towards us. But whatever, that's going in the weeds. Long story short, miscommunication based on assumptions.
Hmm.
Dunning and Kruger.
Well,
It happens. It's available to everybody.
not only that, but who you're asking and the level that they're operating at, you know. Um, if they're used to addressing intellectuals who are into this, if they're used to addressing, DNA scientists or cellologists or molecular biologists or any of these things, they have a language that they're going to use. And you and me, the layman out here, just hoping like hell to get 50,000 miles out of a set of tires, we don't use that language. So to us, the question may sound perfectly clear, but we're not speaking their language.
Right. That is also part of. But I can tell you that these people, they're like the admins of
Hmm.
the R1B project,
Hmm.
and I can tell you that although that's true, that it's not like I have the lingo.
Hmm.
I have some of the lingo, but I don't have all the lingo. But I repeatedly reword until I got to where I
Yeah.
wanted, because
Uh,
I acknowledged, I realized, and I even told them that maybe I'm being misunderstood based on any number of things. Let me
mhm.
see how I can reword this. Let me think. I'm trying to get to this. I'm trying to get to that.
Mhm.
And little by little, and by the way, most of the time they just don't answer. But so what happens is this: they give you any random answer and they keep going, dude. That's what they do. They do it to other people. These people, just because you have the knowledge,
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you have the skills to transfer the knowledge.
And that's what I was getting at when I was talking about speaking different languages, because just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean you have the ability to convey that knowledge in a way that a layman like you or me would understand.
Right. But they don't, yeah, that's true. But at
You
the
know,
same time, they don't have, yes. Let me say the problem in specific with these people is that they don't, I'll tell you, they don't read and
Yeah.
process the actual sentences
The questions.
in
Yeah.
in spite of them being complex or not complex.
Oh my God. That meme that was running around a couple years ago about the apple pies. I got 4 apple pies for sale. The very to post on Facebook, and the very first post was, "You got any peach?" Second post was, "Do you have 6 pies?" The next post was, "Why are you selling apples?"
Yeah.
The next post is, "My friend's cats hate apples." And everything except, did you actually read the post? You know, it's,
Yeah,
it's we I think we're all victim of that at one point or another, and I think we're all guilty of that at one point or another.
absolutely.
Because when you're scrolling down your timeline and you see a wall of text, you know, chances are I'm out. I'm just going to scroll past and not even read it. If I have to scroll more than twice to get to the bottom of the post, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
Simply
I
because I got to move on. I got other things I got to get done here.
yeah,
So,
so I get that. I depending on the topic I do.
mhm,
And so I'm aware of that. And I do when I write a post,
mhm,
I don't I do consider the reader or the potential reader, but I'm not going to cut I cut short just enough that I feel comfortable with,
mhm,
but not enough probably that majority of people would. Because if you participate in writing something of interest or this or that, and you cater to the most average common preference,
mhm.
then you'd have 3 words and an
Yeah,
image of a little yellow smiley face
yeah,
with some party favors on the thing. Um,
yeah. In the background.
and I already know that world.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's fun. Hi, how
yeah.
you doing? Ha ha ha. And
Mhm.
but but that gets me nothing as far as my interest.
Well,
So
yeah, and there you hit the nail on the head with that word right there, was interest. Because I have to go back on what I said a minute ago about scrolling past if I have to scroll more than twice. If I'm genuinely interested in the topic or genuinely interested in the person and their journey in something, like you will post occasionally a couple of pictures of people, and then you'll tell the story about the people, or you'll post a couple pictures of an area and tell the story about that area.
yeah,
I'm genuinely interested in that because I'm kind of living vicariously through you as you trace your family back, because I'm at a standstill. Me and about 500 other people on directly in this line are at a standstill. We've got a brick wall that we just can't seem to break. So I'm kind of living vicariously through your adventures in doing the same thing. And I'm getting kind of a secondary thrill when you make a breakthrough. And it's like, dang, man, he did it. He got back that far. And okay. And I'm reading about it, stuff like that. But if it's somebody talking about a friend of theirs' cat and how this cat took a walk out onto a frozen lake and kept slipping and falling and couldn't figure out why, and meowed in 15 different directions, and I really couldn't be less interested in that. So I'm gone. you know
in the beginning, so Facebook, I look at it. I like Facebook the best out of all the things
hmm
because it's like a diary, but it's a
hmm
current events at the same time. Other people show up on your. I really like it. I'm not gonna lie. I
hmm
like Facebook, the layout and everything. I feel that it connects you to people,
hmm
and people are free to engage or not, and all these things. In the beginning, in like 2009, when I first signed up for Facebook,
hmm
um, I have seen, when they come up 2 years ago, 9 years ago, that
hmm
kind of thing, and they show
yeah
you what you were saying. I'll read and I cringe
hmm
because at the time I wasn't focused on the English language for the sake of. I was colloquial
hmm
with my use.
hmm
I wasn't. Um, at best, my use of the English language was for daily application, just like Spanish,
Conversational. Yeah.
except that I had more of a of a grab bag of words to use and concepts in English, obviously, but I didn't apply it
Hmm.
in conversation. I would, but in written form, it was short, concise,
Hmm.
and colloquial enough where it's cringy to me at this point because I could have said something much better, much more bow tied.
Hmm.
But I was kind of like more street
Yeah.
parlance and such.
Hmm.
Even though I had the ability,
Hmm.
in a way, I, for whatever reason, held myself back.
Well, but it depends on who you're talking to.
No, I'm saying broadly.
Yeah.
I held myself back, and
Okay.
my application of the my respect for language
Hmm.
as a tool
Okay. I see where you're going.
has exponentially grown. Before it was about music writing,
Hmm.
which is basically a short,
Yeah.
and that is an English or
Sure.
language skill
Hmm.
that has its devices that you can use and such
Yeah.
in conjunction with the sounds and music and guitars
Mhm.
and such.
Sure.
But it's not a paragraph.
Right.
It's not
It's
an
verse.
essay.
It's poetry basically.
It's basically poetry. It's
Hmm.
limited in that it's beautiful, but it's limited.
Hmm.
And that was my more or less focus.
Hmm.
But you can't convey certain things
Right.
unless you actually get in the weeds.
Hmm.
You just can't. And by
Yeah.
the way, getting in the weeds compared to what actual people that do like
Mhm.
focus on that's a whole different. But at least I have found more use for the language
Mhm.
writing, and you can't do that in a sentence. You could, but it's not. So I would opt for risking people not reading
Mhm.
and get my idea across. Because people that aren't going to read,
Right. If they're not interested in the subject, then they can't wrap their head around what you're trying to say.
either one of those, either they
Mhm.
can but don't care, or they can't and do care, or they can't and don't care, or they do and they care. Whatever the variations of those might be, or
But
somewhere in between, it's really on them if their preference is to investigate or this or that or
well,
interest.
understood. But you don't start a scientific paper was you don't start a scientific paper with yo dog check this shizzle for rizzle. There are certain languages that we use in various situations. A letter to a loan officer that you're trying to get a mortgage from is going to use different language to a letter than a letter to your grandma, which is going to use a different language to how you talk with your friends, which is a different language of how you're going to talk around your mother-in-law.
Yeah,
There are certain things. Now if you're putting out something and trying to share your knowledge in a public uh, uh, scene, a public setting, then yeah, you have to get the information out, and it's got to be in such a way that the most people are going to understand. Otherwise, what's the point?
I, I
So,
i I try to the best of my ability
mhm,
with being conscious that I can't um or that I shouldn't and I
mhm,
don't, or at least I'm conscious not to do it,
yeah,
to take leaps without giving the reader
mhm,
um, the option of understanding whether I'm confident, more or less confident, or speculating.
yeah,
So this is what I'm telling you. It's speculative. I lean towards, or this is what I'm telling you. It's a fact, and
mhm.
here's why. I try to do that.
Well, yeah, you have to qualify certain things. Look, I'm going by what I just read, and from what I've seen in this article, this article, this article, and this article, this is a conclusion that I'm coming to. What are your thoughts? That kind
Right.
of thing.
And the reason for doing that is to demonstrate to people that you're attempting
Hmm.
to be honest, while
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
conveying opinions within.
Hmm.
You're attempting to operate honestly. I'll give you an example. The one final example about this. I know you have a subject that you want, but I want to should say this last one. I had to eliminate a lady from one of the Spanish groups of
Hmm.
DNA and this and that because she insisted day after day for months and for like a year and something since I've been in that group. Insisted and insisted and insisted and insisted that my people were Jewish.
Hmm.
And insisted and insisted and insisted and insisted
Yeah.
in little ways. And I kept saying, listen, lady, this, listen, lady, that, listen. I'm honest about it. I've said it here in the tree going up in time based on the populations that funnel to me.
Hmm.
There were Jews, absolutely, that I found.
Hmm.
Most of them were from Spain,
Hmm.
the Canary Islands. Some were from Italy. There
Hmm.
were some in France, going back in time.
Hmm.
And so there were these people there. But you can't then say that my great grandparents, my great great grandparents, or whatever, because she shares some of
Hmm.
my same ancestry, but she
That doesn't make everybody in the tree Jewish.
right, but or none of them.
I
That's the
remember.
problem.
I
Or
rem
or
I
none of
remember
them,
you
dude.
talking about this. This lady was obsessed with you for some reason. I don't know what the deal was.
Dude, or none of them, because you have to show if okay, if you are born and baptized,
Hmm.
meaning a Catholic church,
Hmm.
and then for the next 200 to 300 years, there's a succession of parents and children
Hmm.
being born in Catholic churches
Hmm.
and baptized
Hmm.
and operating under, the conditions of the Spanish world. It could be a 200-year stretch of cryptic Jews that are hiding in the this and that. That could be.
Hmm.
But chances are, anything's possible, but chances are that what you're viewing is a long string of Christians
Hmm.
in a Christian context.
Hmm.
I've never heard in my life anything from it, but she's insisting because she likes it.
Hmm.
And I understand that. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But she likes it. But what took the cake, and this is, I guess, to wrap it up, what took the cake is the other day when she and another guy were battling on a post of mine. I said, this has nothing to do with the post.
Hmm.
And I said, and you're looking for Jews. You're like a hammer looking for nails.
Hmm.
And then she came back. I'm paraphrasing the conversation. Doesn't matter at this point because I blocked her.
Hmm.
She says, yeah, because I'll never accept blah blah blah. The Catholics, they did terror on my people. Your people what? I've seen her tree. She has Spanish people in her mind.
Yeah.
In her mind.
Persecution complex.
And the documentation,
Hmm.
she's not accepting it.
Hmm.
There's no Jews in sight. It's fine if there were. The more the merrier. Come on, flood the gates. No problem. As long as it's true,
Hmm.
lady.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is not true. And
Well.
so she cussed out, not really, but yes,
Hmm.
Catholics and Spain. And I said, okay, if that's the case, because one thing if it's something is true, but if you're freaking and
You
plus you
just
just
have a hatred for something that's not reasonable.
right,
That's
and so I blocked her ass, and that's it. End of
you've just
story.
nullified everything you've said because you've now identified your hatred. So you already have this preconceived notion and you're not interested in the truth. I got to tell you, when you were talking about her in particular, and this is kind of getting off the subject of what the heck, she was sending up red flag after red flag to me, and I was getting a little bit concerned. I'm thinking she doesn't know where he lives, thank God, because this is the kind of person that you might wake up one morning, look out your window, and
Standing over you.
she's standing there in front of your gate going, I baked you a cake. You don't want that. So
In the rain with lightning strikes and stuff.
yeah, I was getting kind of concerned. I'm like, dang,
Makeup
man. Bec-
makeup dripping.
because I could not, and I still can't figure out her obsession with you personally. Now
We
I
come
get
from
it.
the same.
I get it. You both share some things in the family tree,
Yeah.
but it seemed to be she was just obsessed with you.
No, she's obsessed with
But
Jewish
yeah,
origin.
but she was directing it toward you, almost like she was trying to convert you or convince you that you were this, that, or the other, or what have you. And it's like, damn, girl, there are 8 billion people on the world. Why are you jumping on him? Look at that family tree. There's a ton of other people in that tree. Why are you obsessed with this guy?
And there's
You
nothing
know?
wrong with, like, I think that having Jewish and that's freaking awesome. Like anything else, whatever. The
Mhm.
point is that as
If
long
as
as
it's
it's
true.
based in truth or
Yes.
and her
And
answer
I
was, well, they burnt all the documents because there was the what do you call it, the Inquisition.
Mhm.
And it is true that a lot of people went crypto,
Mhm.
but the problem is that these men and women that went crypto back in
Mhm.
the 1400s, they married into their surrounding populations.
Mhm.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like you can't, whatever. The
Yeah.
point is that people have whatever they try to fit. We all do that in different degrees, but she was exceptional. Um, and no matter what you how you explain it, honestly, they're not gonna have it if somebody's not
Yeah.
interested in certain in like
Well,
truth. It's just it ain't gonna happen.
and that kind of goes back into the subject that we were on before about the conspiracy thing, because what you have is another massive case of my mind is made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. But that still doesn't address our, I won't say obsession because I don't think it's obsession, but our predilection towards conspiracy.
Yeah,
Are we that distrustful, or are we that cynical, or are we afraid to accept some things as just fact because we don't I don't even know why you would say because this or because that.
because you don't know how much is missing from a person's constructed
Hmm.
map of the world. You, as Mark Lindsay, I've said this before. I think this is a very notable point to make because I think it's really true. You, as Mark Lindsay, have reference points to the degree that
Hmm.
you have over guitars, over
Sure.
um, graphic novels, over lighting implements, over all these
Yeah.
things, over how this works and that works. But the problem is that all those associations and understandings based
Mhm.
on your experiences and what you've read and all these accumulations that exist in your mind as Mark Lindsay, that you've come to understand.
Right.
Um, the problem is that, like, even though you run or bump into, I know you know this, but like, even though I'm just saying it out loud because it's such a, even so, if you bump into another human being, they have eyes like you, hair
Hmm.
like you,
Sure.
arms, legs. They're a human being.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but my tendency is to assume that for the most part, that person you bumped into has come to a lot of the same conclusions you have. And
Yeah.
so when you discuss with the person, more or less, the information being exchanged is not going to fly past each other. But that's not the truth. The truth is that all these constructions that you've built in your mind to associate would 2x4s with this type of nail, and all these things in the world, space
Hmm.
satellites, all these things that you have worked out in your mind across history.
Hmm.
It does not follow by any stretch of the imagination, Mark Lindsay, that the person you've encountered by any stretch,
Yeah.
has the same understanding
Yeah.
or has even thought of bridging the
Mhm.
connections you have by
Yeah.
any stretch. It's a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
Roll of the dice.
Yeah.
Sure, they know what potato chips at a grocery store is when they're picking
Mhm.
it up, and a candy bar, and let's fill the thing with gas. But once you start to exit the localized
Mhm.
normalities, brace yourself. That's the conclusion
Oh,
I'm tentative.
oh yeah, I face that all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about, and you walk a fine line in that because you can't walk around acting like you're the only one that knows stuff,
Right.
but you also, by the same token, can't assume that everybody else knows stuff. So you
Or the
have to
same stuff.
walk a fine line. Or exactly. And I find that distinction every day in the stuff I do on my main YouTube channel. I'm a wood guy. I don't know nothing about cutting metal. And I'm the first one to scream that from the highest mountain. And I constantly have to remind people I am a wood guy because new people show up every day. I'm a wood guy. I don't know about cutting aluminum. I've never done it. I've never had to do it. I'm the wrong guy to ask. Well, you call yourself an expert? No, I don't. In fact, I have a disclaimer on my in every description. I am not an expert. I know the equipment I use. I'm here to help beginners see that there's nothing mysterious about this. You want to know about cutting wood? I can help you. You want to know about cutting metal? Try these other guys over here. I'll give you direction to go, but I'm not that guy. You want to know how to paint a car? I'm not that guy. You want to
You
know
have
how to
some
wire a
ideas.
house? I'm not that guy.
Yeah, but you have some ideas, though.
I have some ideas, but I also understand my limitations.
Right.
So I'm not gonna, I have a major philosophical problem with presuming to teach somebody how to do something I've never done. And far too many people are just okay with that because they can jump on Google and read the article or watch the video and then come back and say, oh, you do this, this, and this. Now, what happens if the guy does that, and it doesn't work because you watched a video from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about? You know, so I kind of stay back and I kind of stay basic, but that's who my audience is: are the people who are just getting started and don't know their left from their right. I'm not going to tell them this is the way to do it. I'm going to tell them this is the way I do it. Your mileage may vary. Try it. There are other ways, but try this and see how it works for you. You
There's pockets of understanding
know. Hmm.
across and crossing subjects,
Hmm.
like the woodworking or the world of woodworking,
Hmm.
where one guy might know more than the other about one thing,
Hmm.
and maybe the other guy knows more about something within the woodworking that the other guy. It depends on the specifics
Yeah,
and this. There's people that have broad. That. Remember that channel, Master of None?
it sounds familiar.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
there's a saying called
Jack of all trades, master of none.
right,
Hmm.
and there's a little bit of that in
Yeah,
everybody too,
yeah. Well,
in a sense.
I like to say I know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. But
But it's that's kind of what it is, because
mhm,
there's people in really unique fields that are beneficial to you and I, in ways we don't know,
right.
that maybe one day we discover, oh wow, that's a beneficial thing that I have no freaking clue about, and yet it's there, and people
And
do that, and I still benefit from that weird certain
mhm,
experimental thing up in Montana. I don't know what the hell.
yeah, and
Um,
but that's where you got to be honest with yourself, and you have to have enough self awareness to know to be open to other ideas, that there are other ways. If you say insert tab A into slot B, because that's the instructions and that's how it's put together, okay, fine, insert tab A into slot B.
Be honest.
But
Oh,
if you have two pieces of wood and you don't know what the heck they are, you don't know where they go, how they go together, are they screwed, are they bolted, are they nailed, are they glued? You're just kind of,
I gotta ask
well,
you
I
this
don't
question.
know. Go
Wait,
ahead.
hold on. Wait, I gotta ask you this question.
Go
I'll
ahead.
be honest.
Uh-huh.
I'll be honest. It's happened to me. How many times? You better tell me. How many times? Don't hide this one. How many times have you built something
Mm-hmm.
like prepackaged whatever,
Mm-hmm.
prefab whatever, and at the end of the project of building it,
Mm-hmm.
you've had spare parts left over, significant or any range? Because I have.
It's
I have.
it's been a couple of times, but it's not because I put it together wrong, because I am that guy. I look at that as an adventure. All right. So just something simple and stupid. Let's say it's an IKEA nightstand.
Yeah.
I come home and I mean I put on a party hat and I'm ready to go. I come home, I clear out a big area in the floor, and I get down on my butt and I open up the box, I whip out the instructions, and I start separating the parts. All right. I've got a special drawer for all of the Allen wrenches I've gotten with that kind of furniture and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, because everybody wants to send you an Allen wrench now.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But I am that guy that follows the instruction. And they say there are 4 of these screws, and I open up the package, there's 6 of them. My first thought is, oh crap, where's this go? There's 2 more than they said. Where does this go?
Yeah.
Case in point, I just did an update to my CNC router, and this one attachment bolts onto the front of the machine, and you use these 2 screws. Okay, fine. I use those 2 screws, bolted on. Now you've got these 4 screws for adjusting this. Okay, fine. Put those 4 screws in, got it all adjusted, tightened it down, follow the directions. Now you have these 2 screws that screw on the cover. Okay, those 2 screws screw on the cover. There's a totally different bolt with a totally different thread at a totally different length. Where the hell does that go?
It's just an extra.
There's nothing in the instructions about it. I took a picture of it and I sent it to the folks at the company. This was in the package. Where does that go? I have yet to get a response. They don't know where it goes. Now, was that something that fell out of something else? Was that something that accidentally got put in a bag that it shouldn't have gone into?
Right.
I don't know where the hell it goes.
It throws everything off, doesn't it?
Exactly. It discombobulates me up here because it's like it looks too important. I can't throw that out. So I put it back in the bag and it's in a drawer.
I've built furniture prepackaged,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had a bag full of stuff. I, I've I've had that situation go, and it's perfectly sturdy. It's
Mm-hmm.
working. What's all this crap? Ah, whatever.
See, I'm not that guy. I followed the instructions because I figured they're the ones that made this. They know how it goes together. I don't. I'm a hack with this
You know
stuff.
what? You know what I
I
don't
don't
like?
buy particle board furniture. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't like. Well, it's useful, I guess, but I don't like. I mean, I bought it, but I don't like those nuts or whatever you call them that you push into the wood,
Mm-hmm.
and then you slide
Screw
in
something
some,
in.
and then
Yeah.
you turn it and it locks it. That kind of
Yeah.
thing. I don't like those very much, but whatever, they work. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
like those.
Yeah. I don't like that kind of thing either. It's just like, you've overcomplicated something that you could have just driven a wooden dowel and put some glue on and clamped that son of a gun together, or even just a wood screw. I don't care. You're overcomplicating it. You're
Yeah,
you're trying to bring furniture assembly down to the guy who's never done it before, and you're giving him hardware he's never seen before and will never see again. Why?
um,
There's
just an
no reason for it.
just an aside. This has nothing to do with anything, but it just popped in my head. I've gotten into people that are collecting comic books and this and that. I think I told you before.
Mhm.
But one thing that they do is collect um, cards,
Mm-hmm.
like trading
Oh
cards.
God, yes.
And dude, I I didn't know this,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a whole world with that. But there's some boxes that they
Mm-hmm.
sell
Mm-hmm.
that in each pack they're expensive, like 300, $400 for
Yeah.
the and there's some packs for like comic books and comics and stuff. Only 3 cards per pack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what the hell? What that doesn't sound tempting.
And they're $300.
Like the box,
Mm-hmm.
it comes with like a stack of whatever, but each little packet within the box
Mm-hmm.
has only 3 cards in them in this particular thing. The only difference is that the cards are thick,
Mm-hmm.
like with some sort of styrofoam in between them.
Okay. Yeah.
But I found it weird, interesting. I was interested, but at the same, because I like that kind of stuff. Um, but the fact that there was just 3
Mm-hmm.
and the cost, you have to like it.
Yeah.
You have to like it, to each their own. I like watching it, but it just
I'm. I.
not
I.
how we
I.
grew up. We grew up with stacks. Remember?
Yeah.
I think they came with like 8
Well, we didn't
or
even have
12.
that. We didn't even have that. We had the Fleer bubble gum with the baseball cards and things like that.
Yeah, but
And
it was
we
a
had,
stack.
yeah, and we had. We were even before Garbage Pail Kids. That came out. I was an
That was
adult
my
when that
time.
came out. You know.
That was my era.
So on the IKEA furniture here, Jim Dockrell says, when you need to put 6 wardrobes in rooms for rent, sometimes the budget is termite puke furniture.
Yeah.
I've not heard that phrase, termite puke,
Yeah.
but I think it's pretty apt. And you know what? I agree with you 100%. It has its place. I just think they overcomplicate things unnecessarily. You know, I
Yeah.
I get it. It has its place. That's a perfect situation, what you're talking about. If you're a student moving out of the house and you need to put together something in your first apartment, or you're just branching out on your own, or you've just moved to a new town, I agree. It's, yeah, perfectly fine. But when you get a little bit older and you get a little bit more discerning and you decide you're tired of replacing cheap melamine furniture every 5 years because somebody sat on it wrong, it's time to kind of class it up a little,
I've bought some couches in the past from Walmart. Perfectly fine.
No, no, no. I'm not laughing about the Walmart. Did you ever bring home a furniture that you found on the side of the road?
I have. I can't recall exactly, but I have.
We brought home a sofa. We brought home a sofa, a sectional sofa, sections, and
I hope it
assembled
was.
it in our living room.
I hope it was leather or pleather as opposed to fabric.
No, we cleaned and bleached the living bejesus out of it and then dyed it a darker color
Oh, okay.
because we didn't like the color. But yeah, we did.
I
We
gotta.
worked for probably 2 weeks on that.
I gotta tell you this. You're not gonna like this because it's a little bit icky. But years ago, I had a live-in girlfriend here.
Hmm.
I was driving,
Mhm.
and on the corner there was this wonderful recliner, one seat love
Mhm.
chair type deal.
Yeah.
And I said, "Man, that looks intact."
Mhm.
And I pulled it, put it in the hatchback,
Mhm.
drove that home, called her out, it came up, we pulled it to the thing, and she's like, "Something's wrong here." I said, "What do you mean?" It's just something. And by the way, I don't have the greatest olfactory.
Mhm.
Some people are like that. I can smell, but like I don't have acute olfactory.
Mhm.
So you can crap your pants, and I wouldn't. No, just kidding. But she was like, and I said, "What?" And dude, yes, I realized there was immense pee
Stench.
stench,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh man!" And she was like, "Oh man!" I said, "No, you know what? I can clean that up. I'm gonna strip the thing and clean it and this and that, because you can pull and
Yeah.
there's a way to get to it and stuff." And I started working on it and smell, and she was like, and like so the whole afternoon I'm working to get to it, to clean it and this and that. Really, I was dead set on getting it, and she looked. And at one point, like I'm sweating and stuff, and it's like disgusting.
Mhm.
And I look up, and she looks at me, and she says, "Do you don't you think it's a better idea to go put that back?" And I'm looking, and like I couldn't find any other thing to say, but yeah, because it was just such a bad move. I wanted to rescue something that needed not be rescued.
Yeah. I think we all kind in one form or another have that built into us because we say, "Oh wow, I don't believe you're throwing that away.
Yeah, it
That's a
was bad, dude.
that's a beautiful TV tray." It's like, dude, it used to be a chair. The back fell off and the legs are gone. Oh, okay. You know, yeah. I mean, we've never run into anything like that,
Yeah,
but
that's an extreme case, dude. I was hell
but
bent on trying to get that
and
solved.
there are certain things that I won't touch. I mean, forget about mattresses. I mean, I'm going down and buying a new one. I'm not taking a secondhand mattress. Sorry. Um,
Mattresses.
and I mean, there are some things you can't that even a pig won't do. Okay, but I mean, I think just about everybody has had the cable spool out on the back porch with the hibachi sitting on top of it, you
Yeah.
know. And it's just like I think there's only like 5 cable spools on the whole world. They just keep getting traded to somebody else down the line when you finally, realize that you can make a whole bookcase out of cinder blocks and 2 by 12s, or one by
Yeah,
12. So
that was our barbecue actually. My dad had leftover
mm,
what do you call these cinder blocks?
mm,
So he this was back in the 80s. So
mm,
behind our house here in the patio in between,
mm.
he built a cinder block barbecue. He actually what do you call that when you give it the outer coat? The
Oh, the stucco.
he stuccoed it. He put
Mm,
rebar for the layers of the thing. He put
mm.
everything, and we had various we cooked various pigs or hogs or pigs
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um,
And if you do it right, you do it right. But I mean, I'm talking about if you had 6 cinder blocks and hit Lowe's or Home Depot and got yourself 3 one
Racks.
by 12s, that's an entertainment center. Because I mean, they're just right. You can put the receiver or amp right there, and then you can put the CD player down or the tape deck down here, and then the turntable over here, and the TV over there. That there's the entertainment center, man. You got it covered. A speaker in each corner of the room, and you're set.
Yeah,
Forget about IKEA. That's $35 worth of stuff. You
I
know.
like IKEA the showroom. I like it. I haven't
Mhm.
been to one in probably close to a decade at this point.
I have
Yeah,
never stepped foot in an IKEA.
it's awesome.
I've never been in one.
You wouldn't, in a way,
Hmm.
IKEA when you're in there, the
Hmm.
showroom
Hmm.
is almost like a mini vacation. Seriously,
Hmm.
because they stage you walk and each room is like a little Disney World entertainment
Hmm.
thing.
Okay.
Seriously, like if you ever visit IKEA,
Hmm.
the bottom floor, at least the one here, is like the warehouse, but you go
Hmm.
up and the showroom just goes on,
Yeah.
and it's like you're on a Disney World ride, dude. I mean, not really, but yes, because you're visiting little examples of living rooms
Yes,
that are so cozy.
we had a store like that in the Bay Area when I was growing up. It was Levitt's Furniture,
Okay,
and it was like that as well. But it was like 2 stories, I want to say, and you walked in and they had living rooms set up. And then upstairs they had bedrooms and the boys' rooms and girls' rooms
yeah,
and master bedrooms and things like that. And it wasn't just one or two. They had dozens of these things. And you literally could go in and spend the day
yeah.
just walking around that store looking at and we ended up getting a sofa and my dad got a lazy boy recliner and all this other good stuff. But I mean, you could spend the whole day in there and not see it all. And this was back, I was a little kid. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. So it was a wild time. But anyway.
Something similar to that, or not similar to that at all, but an entertainment place we used to have here
Mhm.
was called Wanna Do City. And it was
Okay.
up somewhere in Fort Lauderdale or maybe a little bit beyond. And what it was
Hmm.
this whole giant indoor building
Hmm.
attached to a mall. And it was called Wanna Do City. And what it was replicating the all the jobs grown-ups have in
Hmm.
real life, but for kids.
Oh wow.
They installed a whole city,
Hmm.
miniature like Munchkinland,
Hmm.
inside that structure, and it's dark so that it looks like you're walking neighborhoods.
Hmm.
It's lit up. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, but the roof ceiling, it looks like you're in an open. It's you almost feel like you're in a town, like a replica town,
Hmm.
but it's all catered for kids.
Yeah.
So you have bakers, you have cashiers, you have
Hmm.
fire station whatnots, you have all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
And dude, as an adult, so I went with the girlfriend of mine at the time and her daughter. Um, we went a few times. Um, I had probably as much fun, if not more, than the
Yeah.
kid because I'm walking
Oh,
and I feel like I'm in like a Disney World. Like you're looking at buildings that look like some sort of Hollywood backset or something, dude.
yeah.
It
Well,
was it was so awesome.
dude, that's just a fact of life. And there, right there, is the difference between men and women. Little girls grow up to be women. Little boys grow up to be older little boys. Because you can take a 40-year-old man, 50-year-old man, and you give him a box of Legos, he's gonna play with them.
Yeah, it's
You
fun.
give him a Lego kit that is the Millennium Falcon. Even if he doesn't care about Star Wars, never seen the movies, he's going to pitch in. He's going to get in there and start putting stuff together. I mean, it's just man law. The
Do you know what?
only difference between us and little boys is our toys are a lot more expensive and they're more adult driven. But you take that kid who's got a radio controlled boat now, I'll bet you he's got a bass boat when he's 40, you
Did
know?
you have did you have Lincoln Logs when you were a kid?
Yep. Lincoln Logs, Tinker Toys, Legos.
You know the Lincoln Logs, if I recall well, like I can picture them now. Um, they were actual wood, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, a light wood,
Hmm.
but it was cool. I didn't have enough pieces to do all that I wanted, to be honest with you.
Yep.
But I had a can,
Hmm.
as far as I remember. I
Yeah.
think it was a can. I had the Legos too, but I had and I associated they were similar to Legos in my mind.
Hmm.
They're not, but they kind of are because you can
Yeah.
stack stuff.
Sure.
Um, that simple stuff was freaking
Yeah.
fun. If I ever see stuff like that,
Hmm.
even to this day, I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a 5-year-old. Yeah, exactly. Give me the two red plastic, gables of the house, and then I'll lay the little green strips for the roof. You know, yeah, I'm a happy guy. You bet.
My dad
Tinker
used.
Tinker toys were the same way. I don't know how many windmills I made because that was about the only thing I could think of to make was
What
windmills.
exactly are Tinker Toys?
Tinker toys, you had a bunch of different colored dowels that were of different lengths, and then they had a slot on the end,
I remember them.
and
Okay.
then they had a like a round
Yeah.
um, disc that had a hole in the middle, and then it also had holes around the outside.
Yeah.
Now, something I didn't know, and I had those when I was like 4, 5, 6, something like that. Something I didn't figure out until I was, a teenager and I was no longer playing with Tinker Toys was on the edge of that disc that had the holes on the edges.
Yeah.
There's a groove in there. So you could take a rubber band or some string and make pulleys out of it.
Oh, okay.
I did not know that until I was, 12, 13, something like that. And it's like, damn, I could have made, oh man, But
Yeah.
anyway,
It was over at that time. You were already too
yeah.
old, and
Yeah. Well, I
that
thought I
ship.
was too old, but that got me thinking about stuff I could make with that. Even at that age, like, well, you know what? But by that time, my Tinker Toys had gone to somebody else. I didn't have them there. It's like, damn, I didn't know that. You know, but
Uh, I was gonna mention that in my time,
Mm-hmm.
after your time, at that age,
Mm-hmm.
I had the Green Army soldiers,
Yep.
toy
So did
soldiers
we.
that are molded, plastic molded,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that my dad would often say, because he's my mom and he were the ones that would get me these toys.
Sure.
But one of the things that they would, because um, he would say is that, son, when I was your age, we played with those very same toys, but they were made out of lead.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I said, lead?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yeah, lead. In Spanish, lead is plomo,
Plomo. Okay.
plomo. And he said, out of plomo.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what plomo was,
Mm-hmm.
nor what lead was. I'm a kid. I'm a
Yeah.
little kid. To me, it's just some sort of um,
Like
material.
like the stuff in a pencil. Yeah.
Yeah, like as a kid, he
Mm-hmm.
said that as like whatever. But later, as you get older, then you realize, oh wait, that's the stuff that you're supposed to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's like, yeah, we had those. We'd even put it in our mouths. We'd play with
Yeah.
it. So it's like, but it's the same idea of the toy
Mm-hmm.
soldiers.
Yeah. I remember, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was one of my uncles, but I can't remember which one it was. He had the lead soldiers, but this man had gone in and he'd done it himself. He'd painted them all up and put them in different uniforms and what have you. And he had them, in a glass display case. And that was one of his real proud. It was my Uncle Bud. That was one of his big proud things that he had bought them. They were unpainted. He had gotten them as a kid. And he had gone in his teenage years, in his 20s, and he had painted each one and put them in different colors of uniforms, blue and red and what have you. And that was one of his pride and joys, was his lead soldier collection.
Yeah, those are. I mean, I wonder. I'm gonna look real quick.
Some of that stuff is collector's items now, or
I'm
are
just gonna do it
collector's items now.
just for the heck of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Oh,
that's vintage lead toy soldiers. I just want to give it a once over. Yeah, they had variations.
mm-hmm. Then they went to, some of them were tin, some of them were lead. The cheap ones were lead, but now some of those things are
Super expensive.
expensive as hell. So
Um, I guess the last one to ask you, because I know you have a topic you wanted to touch on, but I just on the heels of this,
mhm.
I know we've talked about it, but do you remember the wind up toys that would?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
I love those.
oh yeah. The wind up toys that were like robots that would walk,
Yep.
and then you had the others that you push down, pull back, and it wound up the spring. Then you let go, and it would take off.
Yeah.
There was a toy that I used to get whenever, not all the time, but I would get it at the Payless drugstore here in Medford, which was the big city down here. Still is, but anyway. At the Payless drugstore, and they were called crash cars. And they were little cheap plastic cars that were made to fall apart. And that was the big thing. They were made out of the same plastic that a model car was, that styrene plastic. They were molded to look like, checker cabs or whatever. And you put them together a certain way so that when you rolled it and it hit like a table leg, the roof would fly off, the hood would fly off, the fenders would fall off, and the body would separate.
Yeah.
And I remember that being such a damn kick. Now I'm 4, 5 years old, something like that. And that was such a damn kick in the pants to me that you could, because it was always, oh, you got to take care of your toys. Oh, you got to take care of your toys. And here's one that you could just basically destroy.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to be careful with it. Well, you kind of did because, yeah, you could break it, but they were pretty robust. And I have never seen them again. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where they went, but there's still enough little kid in me right now that if I could find one, you bet I'd play with that son of a gun.
Yeah, I could totally see it. One of the most that I don't think that I'll ever forget, I haven't thus far, is that one Christmas I was taken, my parents and I, we went to my aunt's house, um, Evangelina Uraldi,
Mm-hmm.
um, my grandmother's sister. We went to my aunt. We went to her house on Christmas, and in Little Havana, we drove up from Sweetwater to Little Havana. We drove up, and she brought me a big package. And she said, open it, and everybody's there. And I open it, and it's this box with the Hulk, Stretch Hulk on it.
Oh,
And everybody's like, yay, Hulk. And I'm like, even happier. And I unbox it, and I start playing with it, and the adults start talking. I grab a pencil, and I'm so curious, so I poke right into, and this jelly started. I ruined on that first
yeah.
day, and
Oh, man.
they all looked, and my dad said, "Oh, son, well that's ruined. We're gonna have to throw that away." I said, "No, no." I remember from my vantage point that I had such little time with that Incredible Hulk
Mm-hmm.
that to this day my actions of being so darn, you know,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to poke it, it's one of the things that has stuck with me. That there's this there's this item that I knew I was gonna take home and enjoy because he could stretch. I
Mm-hmm.
looked at it, I was like, I remember and I just penciled the crap out of it, dude. I stuffed it with a pencil, it bled and ruined it, and I'll remember that always, always. And if I ever find one stretchy Hulk, I'll buy it.
That was kind of related to the Stretch Armstrong,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Wasn't it? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It was just a Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, he had his pants with the purplish sort of pants, and he could stretch and stretch and stretch, and it came. You know, he was
Mm-hmm.
like just this thing that you could and it was gel inside. I wanted
Yep.
to know why he could stretch so much, dude. But I I didn't have even a full day with the toy, and it left a permanent memory for me
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. It left a scar.
And they never got me another one. It just because to them it's a cool toy,
Mm-hmm.
but whatever. He's got
You
other
broke it.
toys.
Yeah. You
But
broke it. So sorry.
to me, it
Mm-hmm.
was the most necessary toy that I could have had
Oh yeah.
because the Hulk was very popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the
Oh
80s.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, the
Well,
Incredible Hulk and this and that.
with me, it was HO scale um, slot cars, Aurora AFX specifically. I had so many. I was like every other year I got a new set, and I would just keep adding to it. I had a little fishing tackle box, not so little, that I would keep my cars in the little individual trays. I'd put all my cars in there, and I had a bunch of the lubricant and the stuff to clean it up and everything down in the bottom. I was an absolute fanatic for the Aurora AFX HO scale slot cars. I was a complete maniac for that stuff. And I kept wanting more track and more track to build bigger layouts.
I love those.
And
I had a version of that, but I think they were Hot Wheels.
yeah, I remember my dad brought
Oh, are
home,
you talking about the solid tracks,
yeah, the
not
electric
the
ones.
flimsy? Okay, okay. I had both. I had.
Yeah,
Did
my
you have
dad,
the? I'm sorry. Did you have the plastic ones that you could loop and
yeah,
you
the Hot
connect?
Wheels. Yeah.
Okay, so those were back 10 years prior then.
Oh, God, those came out in the 60s.
Okay.
Hot Wheels came out in the 60s. I was about 5 when my dad brought home some. So we're looking at 66, something like that. Um, well, now I got to look it up because I know I was,
I was playing with toys from the 60s and the 70s.
yeah, well, um,
I was
there we go. I couldn't have been that old.
you couldn't have been no more
I
than one or
couldn't have
two.
been that old.
And it was
Said
late in
that,
the
well, they said that they were released in 68. I couldn't have been 7 years old when I got that. Anyway, yeah, Dad brought home a set, and it was just we clamped you had the little gate, you push the button, and the thing dropped down, and both cars would take off down the track. Clamped it onto the back of a chair, and they went down, did a loop, and then went through the finish gate, and the flag would fall over on whichever one went through first. But if you paid careful attention, if the cars went through close to the same time, it would bounce. And then it just depends on which way it landed, you know.
I can picture that so well, Mark.
Yep.
You have no idea. Well, you do have an idea. I could literally picture. I could picture the wheels on the car.
Mm-hmm.
I could picture the little piece that connected to the that would go in the middle. At
Mm-hmm.
least the version that I had, I could remember. The tracks were black with the metal strips in
Mm-hmm.
between them. You can clamp them together and form different shapes.
Yep.
I remember the
Yep.
controller. They were connected though. They had wires to it, as far as I remember.
But
Freaking awesome stuff.
the AFX cars, the HO, I'm 63 years old. If I could get my hands on a set, I'd play with it.
A big
I don't
deal
know where
too.
I'd put it, but I would.
A big deal too back then, and
Mhm.
I believe that I was lucky enough to see the tail end of that. Even generations after me, slightly, but I'm
Mhm.
the tail end of that, where trains, electric trains, were a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
There were kind of three different groups. You had the kids who were all about airplanes, four groups, all about airplanes, all about boats, all about trains, and all about cars. And the cars were kind of divided up. You had kids who were into big trucks, and you had kids that were into hot rods, and other kids who didn't care what it was. Just and the fight was on between Matchbox and Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
You know, and so the train kids, we kind of, I mean, we're like, okay, fine, play with your train. I've got Hot Wheels over here. It wasn't really a rivalry or anything, but I never really got into the trains because to me, it looked like all you could do was set up the layout and watch it go around. There really
Pretty much.
wasn't, it wasn't racing, with the slot car track. You and your buddy are both there with your controllers and you're racing one another and trying not to wipe out and hoping your buddy doesn't wipe you out at the same time. There was some competition going on there.
A
But
little
with a
bit, but
train,
they had
you
the
just,
same speed.
yeah, but it was also, well, no, they didn't all have the same speed. I had a little AFX 57 Chevy Nomad with an orange body on it that was a screaming little demon. That was my fastest car. But I don't know what it was, if it was extra windings on the motor or stronger magnets or what, but that was a screaming little son of a gun. So I loved that thing. But all that went up in when my parents' garage caught fire. All that burned. All of that burned.
I
And
mean,
it
I,
was
I
like,
don't even know where half the stuff. It just goes through
mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Like half the stuff you would expect to still have. In
Mhm.
my mind, I don't even know where half the stuff went.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
idea where all that stuff went.
A lot of it, I don't know where it is. A lot of it, my brother inherited a lot of it when I got married and moved out because I don't want that no more. Yeah, I don't interested in that no more.
If I
But
would have kept my Nintendo collection, it would be worth some decent money. If I would have had my um, collector's card collections of football, baseball,
yeah, I
and all
never got into
sorts,
that either.
if I still had that, that would
Mhm.
be worth some money because I had some old cards that I inherited from
Mhm.
previous cousins.
Yeah,
I had some old cards. I don't know where all that went. And if I would have had my comic book collection, same thing.
yeah. I don't, I never got into really hot and heavy into comic books. There were a couple of comics I read, but I never got super hot and heavy into it. And I didn't get into the trading cards either. I wasn't growing up. I wasn't into baseball or not really into football. I was a little bit. about sixth grade, I kind of got into the Oakland Raiders, but then they moved down to Los Angeles, and it was like, to hell with you people.
Well, if
You
I
know.
had those from when I was a kid, right
Mhm.
now I wouldn't be speaking to you from Sweetwater. I'd be in a chateau speaking to you from a chateau in Montenegro while sipping on, what do they say on
Dom Perignon.
Don
Mhm.
Perignon,
Yeah,
and
and just
eating cheese off of a little stick,
yeah,
uh, toothpick thing
yeah. Well,
with flip flops.
you can do that now, but I mean,
Yeah, I actually,
because it turns out when you're a grown up, you can do what you want.
uh,
So if you want to brush your teeth with chocolate icing, go for it.
but if you compound all that whole image, and one of those the fancy night not nightgown, what are they called,
Oh,
or
smoking jacket.
yeah, smoking jacket,
Hmm.
yeah, and a pipe, screw it,
Hmm. A pipe. Yeah, yeah.
for
You
no
can't
reason
you can't
whatsoever.
be high class without a pipe. So Jim Dockrell says if I kept all the stuff I ever had, I would be classified as a hoarder. There would be an intervention and maybe a TV spot. Yeah,
Yeah,
there is that. I mean,
there is a lot across the years. I mean, you still collect, you still keep certain items, or I have certain items that have been with me since the beginning, but few and far between, like little whatnots.
I don't really have much of anything that I've had since I was a kid. I don't really have much of any of that. It all just kind of drifted away, or I thought I outgrew it, or something like that. All my movie cameras and projectors that got destroyed in the fire. And I mean, I got my first movie camera when I was 7 years old for Christmas, and I was hot and heavy into that, and that built up until just before I went into the army the first time. It was when my parents' garage burned, and a lot of that just went. So, what can you say? Um, most everything I've got now, basically, we've hoarded since Linda and I got married. But you know what? Take that right next to me, almost within arm's reach. I'd have to take off my headset and move over. I can pick up the airline guitar that Linda got for her 12th birthday. So we do have some of the stuff that she had from a young age. But just most of mine got scattered into four winds.
Could you imagine people like my parents that left everything behind?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't know, because in my life I basically kept
Hmm.
the trajectory right here
Hmm.
all my life, but for them, all the stuff that they would have had at back home
Uh-huh.
either belongs to somebody else now,
Hmm.
or is in some sort of garbage fill or who knows what,
Yeah. Yeah.
gone
Um,
from one moment to the next.
well, when my parents passed, we lived in a different state. And well, my mother passed. We lived down in Nevada. We were just a few miles away. We moved up here. Then my father passed. We took a few things, and I left everything else to my brother and his wife. So, I've got a coffee table and two end tables that my parents bought when I was 5, maybe 6. And I've got a few other things of theirs, but I picked and choose some small stuff and just let him have everything else. We've got our furniture. We have furnished our home. We've got enough stuff of our own. And while there is some sentimental attachment to certain things, and I was sad to see them go, I had no place to put them. They would have ended up in storage somewhere, and there's no reason for that. There really is just no reason for that. Put it in the hands of somebody that can use it. You
I've
know.
always liked the idea, it was that in mind, of having a room
Mm-hmm.
that's a, I don't know if you call it a hobby room or a
Mm-hmm.
where you have all the things that are precious to you. And some people have themes like an
Yeah.
arcade room or a men's lounge, or
Hmm.
in the house, maybe in the basement and stuff. But
Yeah.
to do it nice, do it up nice, and
Hmm.
have those collectibles and such, even things from when growing up, like a museum of sorts, home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea. Like that guy that did recreated a street from Disney World in his
Oh,
basement
down
and
in his
stuff.
basement. Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. I know it's not like home stuff, but I like a space for, and I think one would be cool. Remembering, like, just maybe China
Hmm.
that the parents had, or
Yeah.
any number of random items
We
and
do
stuff.
a few things like that. Yeah, we've got a few things that we got when we were over in Germany. We got a few things from my folks. We got a few things from our various travels, and then the everyday stuff that we just use all the time. But
Yeah,
you know, Corel dishes and things like that that we use all the time. But Linda had, we both have our little collections. Linda collects milk pitchers. And so she's got this collection up on the top of our kitchen cabinets of milk pitchers that she's picked up just all over the place. Germany, Georgia, Tennessee, I mean, Austria, uh, I think even the Netherlands, but I don't remember.
my grandma and I, we'd go to the mall.
Hmm.
Mom collected all sorts of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um, but I would travel with my. This is an aside, but within the realm of collecting these things that are glassware and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, there was a store called Luria's,
Hmm.
and it was all fine china, fine statuettes and stuff to decor the house. And the whole place was like bull in
A bowl in a china shop.
a it's a bull in a giant. It's that. Um, and I remember going to the mall, and I loved everything.
Hmm.
Like the travel through the mall, and
Hmm.
that store was okay, but it was sort of like you're a kid, and there's all this glass stuff, and she would tell me, "Don't be careful."
Don't touch, hands in pockets. Yeah.
And I remember she'd spend a lot of time looking at these glass, like swans, or
Hmm.
glass, like anything glass. And I was, to me as a kid, as a boy, um, I just didn't see what's all
Yeah.
this excitement about, grandma, in
Yeah.
that thing. But I would buy stuff as I got older from that place,
Hmm.
because they had small glass blown um like animals
Hmm.
that were very nice,
Hmm.
like for girlfriends and stuff. And so I
Yeah.
found an appreciation at that level. But as a kid,
Hmm.
when you're at home and you see mom putting up china
Hmm.
in these cabinets, which
Yeah.
she loved to do, um, one doesn't, as a kid, as a boy, doesn't appreciate that
Yeah.
contributes to the beautifying of
Hmm.
one's. You're
My
not you're not
yeah.
you're not thinking those terms.
My grandmother was one of those people that had plates hung up on the walls in the kitchen. And I could never understand that. How come you don't eat off of those? Oh no, those are my pretty plates.
Yeah, yeah, things like that. Like, well, why are
Yeah.
they up there? Let's use those
You
suckers.
know?
You
And
know,
in fact, that made my mother mad one time. Did you have the decorative towel on the towel rack?
we did with a letter, our family letter.
Okay, we didn't have that, but we always said, my grandparents and my mom always said, no, don't use that. That's for company.
Yeah,
Don't use that. That's for
yeah.
company. I was probably I was in my mid 40s. I went over to my mom's house and went to the bathroom and got finished. And I come out with one of those towels drying my hands. And she goes, "What are you doing with that towel?" I said, "I'm drying my hands." She goes, "You know those towels are for company." And I said, "I don't live here. What am I?" She wasn't having it. She had an absolute fit. I'm like, "Mom, when was the last time this puppy was washed?" "Last week." "I don't believe that. It's still crunchy, you know." Put
So
it in the
that
dirty
store,
clothes.
Luria's,
Mm.
had other things that were weird
Hmm.
to me.
Yeah.
For some reason in the 80s, and maybe it was before that, I'm sure it was before that, but my reference point, she would also purchase elaborately molded 17th century maiden with a skirt
Mhm.
made out of soap.
I never understood that. Oh my gosh.
And I was like, it's awesome, but let's dunk that sucker in water and see how long it lasts. That was my intention. I always wanted to unpack and tear open and slice up
Yes.
and like get and so but I remember her and she said, don't touch
You
that.
don't touch that.
Leave leave that alone. Don't put water on stuff like that. Um a boy doesn't that doesn't
No,
process.
my grandmother had a little glass bowl that had little round soaps that were carved to look like roses.
I
And
remember those.
they sat over on one corner in the bathroom on the counter. No, no, those are grandma's pretty soaps. We don't use those. And I never, why do you have that if you're not using it? What's the purpose of decorative soaps? I don't get it. We're from another time. Back when she was growing up as a kid, stuff like that was expensive. That was luxurious. That was an extravagance. So to have something like that
Was something, yeah.
was special. But to a 4 or 5, 6 year old kid, no, I want to use that soap, Grandma. No, you don't use those are Grandma's pretty soaps. And she got the Fells naphtha out, which always smelled like kerosene. And you wash your hands with that, and you walk around smelling like lighter fluid all day.
Our sofa
Mm.
in our house, mom and dad furnished like the seating in the living room with what to me now looking back is 18th century furniture looking stuff
Mhm.
with the legs, that the
All
wooden
the
legs,
carving, yeah,
and the actual material was this soft yet sheen. I don't even know what to call it. Gold shimmering. It was fancy. It looked nice,
hmm
but it was almost like we used it. But it's almost like they had the same material on the armrests as a sleeve,
yeah,
so that your arm.
yeah. So you didn't get the arms of the chair dirty. You got the that thing dirty, and that could go on the washing machine.
So there's all these attention to details
Yeah,
back in the day. I'm
yeah.
sure still exist. I don't know because I'm a caveman, but there was all these things that enriched that world in
Yeah,
spite of us not having all the technology we have today.
yeah.
Um, uh, I think it
Well,
was very good to grow up having those like candelabras.
yeah,
I don't know about you. We had a candelabra. Never mind that electricity had been around for the past 100 years by
yeah,
that time.
yeah.
But we had a candelabra, and that was a fancy thing to have.
Did you have the doily on the dining room table?
Yeah,
We had the doily went on the dining room table. Then we had this big earthenware bowl that fruit was in. And there
yeah.
was always like a few apples, a couple oranges, some bananas. There was always real fruit in it, and you could help yourself. And if you took an apple within an hour, mom got another apple out of the pantry and put it in there. It's like a never ending supply of fruit for that fruit bowl. But then it was time for dinner. There's four of us, four chairs at the table. Mom would pick up the fruit bowl, pick up the doily, and it went in her chair in the family room. And then she'd set the table and we'd sit down and eat.
Yeah.
And then when all that was done, table get wiped down, doily gets down, and then the fruit bowl goes back. And that kind of reinforced my opinion that for Jim, he doilies on the furniture
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You couldn't have a like the top of a low bookcase that had to have doilies on it and maybe two candlesticks and
Yeah.
something in the middle, a couple of family portraits or whatever. Um,
Yeah, it
and
was fancy yet normal, or
uh-huh.
it not. It was something that enriched the experience.
But it always said something. It always said home to me.
Yeah,
It was home. It was homey. The fireplace. I don't know if you guys didn't have a fireplace, right?
we did, but it was a a non-functional fireplace because it was
Mhm.
sealed off.
Yeah.
Um, it was sealed off.
But did you still have the fireplace tools
No,
sitting
no,
there?
no. We had it was a marble far. It was a marble fireplace, and the
Hmm.
back of it was sealed
Hmm.
with marble.
Yeah.
So it was non-use because
Hmm.
whoever the people before us were the second people to own the place. The people before us came somewhere from up north, and you build a house with a
Hmm.
fireplace.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Florida, that's just not.
Well, we had fireplaces in Hawaii too. So yeah, don't ask me why. I do not know why. I
People
think they
from
used
the
to burn their garbage. I don't know.
People from the north, I imagine,
Hmm.
you have a way of doing things for maybe 100 years tradition
Hmm.
or more,
Yeah.
and why are you going to stop just because you're in Florida?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I hear you. Well,
up
so, but you had the fireplace. My grandparents, my parents' house, same thing. You had the fireplace, and even if you never used that sucker, you had the set of fireplace tools on one side with the little broom, the little shovel, and little poker, and then on the other side, you had like a coal bucket. It may or may not have a couple chunks of firewood in it, but it's like you had to dress the thing, whether you used it or not.
I'll tell you somewhere where your experience and mine parted, and they parted in many ways, but this is one that would stick out.
Hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong. If you would go into that kitchen of ours
Hmm.
back in the day, you would find a corner
Hmm.
with a tub, and if you open the lid of that tub,
Hmm.
there was not a little, not a medium, not a regular pack. There was a sack
Hmm.
of mesh
Hmm.
full to the brim with white rice and a
Nope.
scoop.
Nope. Didn't have that.
And the reason we had that was because one of the staples in the Spanish world, and in particular in our
Hmm.
corner of the Spanish world, in the Caribbean and in specific in Cuba,
It was rice.
white rice accompanied every type of dinner.
Uh huh.
Every type of dinner. If you had steak, white rice on the side. If you'd have a salad or this or that. But so that's one feature
Uh huh.
that I grew up with that I'd see there.
Hmm.
And rice was basically always the case. It was always present. Rice.
Yeah. We had potatoes. So we had potato bins. In fact, we've got a potato bin here. We don't use it for that. It's kind of a makeshift bookcase. We tuck things in it, but it just looked like a little cabinet, and you had two kinds. You had the kind that had doors that opened, so you could put like potatoes up on top and sweet potatoes down on the bottom, or you had the type that had the pull out front. It was hinged down at the bottom, so it opened like a bin, and you put your potatoes in that. And it had holes drilled in it to let air to ventilate, so they didn't sit in there and rot. And you never bought less than 10 pounds of potatoes at a time, and you bought a bag of potatoes every time you went to the store. We ate the hell out of potatoes. There was potatoes with just about every meal. So, or every dinner, I'll put it that way.
It was great stuff, dude.
Oh yeah,
Back
you
in
know.
the day,
Hmm.
these things I'm talking about,
Yeah.
be it the potato or these are things that just surrounded my life here.
Hmm.
I mean, we had potatoes too, but not like what you're saying.
Yeah.
We'd have a bag of potatoes,
Hmm.
but it's not like it was a constant.
Oh, it was a constant with us because you got to remember now, my grandmother and my mom are both from Texas, so you've got that right there. Just about everything was fried, um, and they come from Irish families. So that whole side there, it was potatoes all the time. Potatoes, bread, uh, heavy, heavy, heavy on the starch. But that was what the way the meal was. You had a protein, you had your meat, you had a vegetable, you had a starch. So it could be potatoes. It might be, if it was in the summer and it was hot, it might be macaroni salad, but probably would be potato salad. And then you'd have a vegetable, green beans or corn or asparagus or whatever. And then whatever meat you were having, whatever meat or fish. But it was usually potatoes with every meal. And in the wintertime, it was just a constant thing: mashed potatoes and gravy, or mashed potatoes with butter, or fried potatoes, or baked potatoes, whatever. So,
We were stew people, even though we're Caribbean based.
mm-hmm,
Um, the population that I come from within that
mm-hmm,
originated in the Canary Islands and Spain proper. And these people in the Canary Islands and Spain proper were big soup and
mm-hmm,
stew people.
mm-hmm,
And that was just transferred over to the Caribbean.
mm-hmm.
And we would have stews with virtually
Yeah,
almost every meal
yeah,
as a side dish or as the main dish with bread
yeah,
and this and that.
yeah.
And as for steaks,
Mm-hmm,
anytime I'd see growing up, this is a difference. When I would see on TV the typical American meal,
mm-hmm,
and they'd have like the steak and ale with the thick
mm-hmm,
steak,
mm-hmm,
I understood what I was looking at.
mm-hmm,
But what you have to understand is that at home, my reference point to steak was
mm-hmm.
skirt steaks,
Oh,
like
okay.
the thinness of steakums.
Mm-hmm,
That's traditional for the Cuban world, not the thick steaks.
mm-hmm,
So to me, it wasn't until later when I would
mm-hmm.
go and out in the town that I would actually order that. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, a steak in
Yeah.
practice was a skirt steak.
Mm-hmm. Wait, you go to Germany, a steak is a rump steak. You didn't get a chuck or a sirloin or a T-bone. They don't know. They have no reference for that unless they've been to America,
Yeah,
because that they don't cut their beef that way. They
yeah,
don't cut. They eat a lot of pork over in Europe, a lot of pork, because you can run pigs. You can run more pigs on the same property that you can get beef.
yeah,
And chicken was always over there seen as a little bit higher class and more expensive, because cows eat grass and hay, maybe some grain. Pigs will eat any damn thing. Chickens eat people food. They eat grain, they eat corn, they eat the same stuff we eat. So it was more expensive to raise chickens than it was to raise pigs or cows.
yeah.
And they could fit more pigs on the same size lot. So they eat a lot of pork over there.
In the 80s. Oh, you're gonna say something? Go ahead.
No, that is just going to say. So when they get over here and they see 52 different cuts of beef, it's like, where do you start?
Yeah, this is a beef capital, roughly to be
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, this is very specific, but whatever. I just remembered talking about chicken.
Mm-hmm.
There was a stretch when it was popular at home, at least around here, or maybe it was just my house, but maybe not. I don't know. You tell me. Where it was a thing to make at home chicken cordon bleu.
For a little while, yes.
Okay,
For a
because I
little
remember
while.
that it became a thing. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the recipe got passed around America. I don't know what the hell, but people were doing up the cordon bleu. I remember that, and my mom, she was like, "Look, this is a special way to do it. This is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
great." And I tried it. I remember more or less the first time. I was like, "Holy crap, this is freaking some dynamic stuff." You
Yeah.
know, this was like back in sometime in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, there was a stretch of
Yeah.
cordon bleu activity.
Did you ever do the Malibu chicken?
What was that one?
Malibu chicken was like a grilled chicken breast, and you put some ham on top,
Yeah.
and then cheese on top of
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's freaking awesome. See, that's a good way
Mm-hmm.
to you're having your chicken, but you're sparking up some extra
Yeah.
flavors in there.
Exactly.
I'm all
Exactly.
for that.
Yeah. And
A lot.
I've always been adventurous when it comes to food, because I'm one of those people. I love food. I love to eat, and I love to experience new things. And it's always been in my mindset, what am I missing? There's something out there that's absolutely delicious that I haven't found yet.
Antelope butthole blue, cordon butthole blue.
I'll try the antelope part, but I mean, we got to Hawaii, and they were, I'm working with a bunch of Hawaiians and Filipinos, and they're like, yeah, elbow, elbow. You want to try some octopus? I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're like, you're not grossed out by that? I'm like, no. Why would I be? And I went on a little thing. Linda didn't like it, or I don't know if I ever talked her into trying it. But you could go to the little store next to the place I was working, little convenience store. I'd get a soda and a little package of dried cuttlefish, and it was basically like fish jerky, but it was cuttlefish. And yeah, sure, I'll try it, check it out, and it's like, damn, that's pretty good.
Octopus, I've had it. I'm
Mhm.
not. I have a thing where I mean, hell, I'll eat almost just about, but they look so like they're intelligent, and the same happens with pork. Although I eat pork, but when it comes to intelligence, like an animal,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to like if it's just an animal. And I don't want to suggest, but like chicken and this and that, we've grown accustomed to oat dinner. But
Mhm.
when it comes to these more intelligent creatures,
Mhm.
it's almost like, man, is this right? Um,
I've never had that issue, you know. George Carlin had a story about that. Talk about oysters. He says, when I look at an oyster in the shell, I'm thinking that's his house. I'm going to break in there, break into his house, and take him out. We have laws against that.
yeah,
He says, now, if a oyster slips and falls out of his shell, I'll eat it in a second because I have no sympathy for a clumsy mollusk. But I figure it this way: if they were that damn intelligent, they'd figure out a way to not be on my plate. So I'll give it a try. And I don't like everything. There are very few things I don't like. I'm not much for eggplant, and I'm not much for liver.
Burr?
Liver.
Oh, I love liver.
Yeah, I'm not much for liver. I'm not much for eggplant. I'm not much for kidney.
I don't like
But
kidney.
just about anything else, heart, sure.
I
I
don't like
mean,
heart.
yeah, I loved it. My brother and I used to fight over the heart and the gizzard from the chicken my mom was cooking.
I just personally find something sacrilegious about heart. I find something disgusting about the liver. I'm sorry about the kidney, but I totally accept the liver for some reason.
Yeah, I'm just not much for the flavor. And my dad loved liver. Mom would eat it. She could take it or leave it. So every once in a while, mom would make her and dad liver and onions, and she would always fry up a bunch of chicken gizzards for my brother and and I'll tear up some chicken gizzards, boy. I eat my own weight in chicken gizzards.
Um, one extra thing. One of the first time I ever, I know this is departure, but the first time I had Arby's
Hmm.
proper was when it opened up in Sweetwater back in the day,
Hmm.
and I could not believe myself. I know it's just a simple burger,
Hmm.
but well, it's not a burger, but the fact that it had roast beef
Hmm.
and cheese melted on it,
Yep,
fake cheese, but I don't care. Boy, that was such a because
it was
everything else
different.
was, yeah, everything else was hamburgers,
Hmm.
and these
Yeah.
people had this, and boy, that was special. I've loved Arby's ever since, dude.
Well, we asked this probably 2 3 years ago. What's your favorite fast food place? Mine
Arby's
changes.
and Arby's and Long John Silver's.
Okay, mine is KFC.
Well, that's up there.
I have eaten more KFC in the last 3 years than I have in the previous 20. I have found a new appreciation. It's just something about it. We got into a mood one night and said, we haven't had KFC in a long time. She goes, yeah, it sounds good. So we went out, we came back, we sat down with it, and it's like, damn, I forgot how good this is. It's a bit pricey, but you get it's a full regular meal, just like you would get at home. You got the chicken, you've got your choice of sides, potatoes and gravy if you want, green beans. We also get we like to get the macaroni and cheese. I mean, you're getting an actual meal like somebody sat down and it's like somebody cooked it for you.
I've always had a little less appreciation for mac and cheese,
Mhm,
unless it has beef in it,
mhm.
um, thrown in.
We
But
always
the mac,
did we always did ham in our mac and cheese.
yeah, but just mac and cheese alone, there's
Mhm.
something bland about it, in my opinion.
Oh, it's a great side. It's a great side dish. If we're having like, if I grill up some hamburgers, mac and cheese is perfect. You know,
I
it's a
mean, it
great side.
matches with the combination,
Mhm.
but just
Or
on
hot
its
dogs
own,
or something like that. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, and that, yeah, I guess you'd have to attach all those other goodies. I like coleslaw.
Mhm. Now, I have never thought of mac and cheese as the meal. It's always been the side dish,
Yeah,
you know.
in
So,
that case, I can, but some people do enjoy it like a main thing, and
mhm.
I'm not. It
Yeah,
doesn't have taste, man.
I'm not that guy. Okay, we've got some here. KFC sucks in Canada. Sorry to hear that, Jim. But at least you can get poutine. Let's see the best chicken down here from Kilroy. Hey Al, best chicken down here is Churches. We don't have a
Churches.
Churches. Um, we don't have a Long John Silver's either.
I love Long John Silver's. I
Steve
just,
says he prefers Popeyes. We don't have a Popeyes here.
dude, Popeyes and Bojangles
Hmm.
have some of the spiciest chicken. I remember back we used to have some, at least
Hmm.
more around here.
Hmm.
And dude, that chicken would, I mean, that would have you. Dad would not have that. I like that stuff. That was
Hmm.
good.
We don't have a Popeyes. We don't have a Churches. We had Popeyes when we lived down in Georgia. We lived in Savannah, but I was more into the local barbecue places when we lived down there. So to me, it was an adventure when we wanted something to eat to try a new barbecue joint. Loved it, loved it. But
When
on the
when
regular, yeah, we would, Crystal's Burgers and we would, Waffle House for breakfast or something like that.
Mark Saunders came down to visit,
Hmm.
this time that with JP, Javi, Mark Saunders, and I went. Where are we gonna eat? And we came to the conclusion, oh, we've got a barbecue place and this and that, and oh, it's great and stuff. And he says barbecue in Florida. I think I remember well. And she, yeah, it's great, and it is. Except in that on that occasion, the freaking barbecue was crap.
Yeah.
The everything was crap. I mean, it was passable, but not
Hmm.
really. It
Hmm.
wasn't the best they could do, so it left a bad impression. That's why it's good too. If you're
Yeah.
gonna, serve your food good,
Well,
well.
we lived out in the first house we lived in there in Savannah, just way out to the west side. I mean, all just basically just out of town. Right down the road from us, maybe a half a mile, was a little place on the corner of the main drag and our street. And it was a typical, stereotypical little southern place called Mammy's Kitchen. And it was a little hole in the wall place with maybe 3 tables in it, maybe four. And they sold most of their stuff to go. We ate there one time with, me and Linda and the kids. We ate there one time, but most of the time we went and got something and took it home. And it was hilarious setup. The smokehouse was out back. And it was run by a lady who called herself Mammy, and her husband, everybody called him Pappy, of course. Well, Pappy would get up at about 2 o'clock in the morning and he'd go outside and he'd get the fire going out in the smokehouse. And he'd burn everything down until it was coal, burn all the wood down until it was coals, and he'd put on the meat that they were going to be serving that day. About okay, David knows of it. David knows of Mammy's Kitchen. Yeah. About 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, Pappy would start drinking whiskey.
Uh-oh. Pap
And
is
a,
going down on the bottle.
and about noon, all the meat was done, and so was Pappy. And they'd come out of the restaurant, take all the meat inside, carry Pappy home to bed, and uh, they'd go in and prep everything for that day. best damn food in the world. Oh my God. That was my first taste of Brunswick stew, and I've been in love with Brunswick stew ever since.
Did you
And
ever know anybody that called like I called my father Pappy?
mhm.
Did you growing up in your area? Did other kids or any other kids call their father Pappy?
My one friend, he Vincent, he was a Mexican family. He called his dad Papi.
Yeah,
That's as close as we got.
I would call my dad Papi
Mhm,
and my mom Mommy.
mhm,
Um, some people would say Papa,
mhm,
Papa,
mhm,
or Mama, Mama. But I would call them Pappy and Mommy. Um, I was always curious because others that's dad. I never necessarily use the word
mhm.
when referring to him. Hey, dad.
Yeah.
Never.
Oh, dad. My dad. It was always dad or pop.
Pop.
Pop short for papa.
Yeah.
Grandpa was grandpa, but my grandfather on my mother's side, he was granddad. My grandfather on my father's side was grandpa.
Interesting.
But
My
uh,
grandfather was Papa.
mhm, okay.
3 times. My dad got a two
Hmm.
Poppy,
Hmm.
but my grandfather got a Pa.
Hmm.
Um, I just that's how it was.
Linda threw in a comment about that place, the Mammy's Kitchen. That place killed me. I had to drive it past it every morning on the way to PT, then home, then back to work, and the smell of barbecue drove her nuts. Yeah, it was a good, real good food. Oh my God, that place was real good. I guess David, it's gone now,
And
but
Pappy was on the hooch, huh?
oh my God, yeah. And that was the case. About noon, the food was done, and so was Pappy. And he was getting carried off to bed. But they found their little rice bowl and they went with it, man. And damn, it was good food.
Hey, dude. Before we because I know that
Yeah, we need to go
it.
ahead and round it up.
Oh, I was gonna say, what
Wrap it
was
up.
the subject you never?
I'll talk about it next week because I need to do a little bit more exploration.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show.
mm,
We do go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time. As many of you know, we have apart from the channel here on YouTube, we also have over on Facebook our page, which is Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook, and we usually, we'll post certain images or videos or links referring to whatever we talked about on
oops.
occasion. So be sure to do that. And we have a website, which is trampledunderfootpodcast.com, where you can catch past episodes, download them, and enjoy them on the go. And we're also sponsored by
Hardy
oh
Hill Media. You want to do it? Take it.
no, I don't know, I just kept rolling for some reason. Go ahead.
Roll with it, homeboy. Get your website here. This ain't Paul Revere. It's Stevie's in the comment section. Wave at him here. No, this is why I don't have a job in that industry. Harnell Media. I mean, what do you want me to say? This is episode 314. What do you want me to say today that's different from the 313 times I've already said it? Because I still mean everything that I've said. If you're even toying with the idea of a website, get yourself over to harnealmedia.com. Click that contact us link and shoot Steve a message. He's going to take care of you, do as much or as little on that website as you want him to do. If you're a seasoned veteran, he'll just do the hosting and take care of the back end so you don't have to worry about it. If you're like me and don't know what you're doing when it comes to website, he can hold your hand and take care of you the way he does me. He's very competitively priced and it's 100% personalized service. So do yourself a favor, get over to harnealmedia.com. That's HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
All right, guys, well, enjoy the rest of your week. Now that the cold weather has gone for me, I can do that much better. I hope the same is for you guys. um because boy, we had a tough one last week. But enjoy the things you do. Be safe doing them. We'll catch you here next week, same time, same channel, and see ya.
Please.
It's like that.
No, it's not like that.
Hey, peace, people. No, it's like that.
That